Turnkey with Morgan Francis. Sponsored by Integrity Roofing.
Welcome into Turnkey on Queen City News Plus, your go-to show for everything real estate in the Carolinas. We talk about the latest market trends, do's and don'ts of the industry, and provide expert advice on navigating this dynamic landscape that we call home. I'm your host, Morgan Francis, and on this Turnkey, we kind of have a spooky Halloween-inspired Turnkey, and we have brought in the whole team of experts here. We're going to talk about stigmatized properties, and that includes haunted houses. We have Rachel Workman. She is the owner of Ghost of Davidson to tell us about some haunted houses in our area. We also have Kim Matthews, who teaches real estate courses in South Carolina on disclosure and so-called stigmatized property. And then we have Charlotte-based real estate agent Mike Heggie, who you all know and love because he has been on the show before. So thank you, all of you. We have a packed house today.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah, fun. Thank you.
I am really excited to talk about this topic. So, Rachel, I'd love to start with you.
Okay.
Because you are the owner of Ghosts of Davidson, and there are some haunted houses in our area that you know of.
There are definitely some haunted houses in our area, and I go past them on my tour and talk a little bit more about them. I also happen to know the owners of some of them. So, I do have some funny backstories of some of the homes on my tour.
Well, let's hear one of the backstories.
So, one of my friends owns a historic home in Davidson. It was built around 1900, and it was built by the town doctor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my friend is only the third owner of this home. When he and his wife signed the paperwork, they're at the closing for this property. The old lady who had owned it before them, she was a widow. And after everything was signed, she leans over the desk and says, there was a murder. That's not what you want to hear after you've already signed the paperwork.
Okay.
After. So yes, the original homeowner, the doctor of our town, was murdered by the town pharmacist in 1914. So it was very, very scandalous. It would be scandalous now, but it was very scandalous in 1914.
So are there rumors that the ghosts still live there and that they revisit?
Yes, there are rumors. Now, the funny part is the homeowners themselves will say it's not haunted. And I've found that to be true of several of the homeowners. I think to maybe live in a house where you've had something like that happen, you either have to be in the state of mind where you don't, you just ignore that fact, or you don't think about it, or you're just the person that doesn't see or feel the spirits, because everybody's different. Some people feel things, see things, and other people don't.
Yeah, maybe it was just a draft. Maybe it wasn't, maybe I'm just kind of imagining things.
Sometimes it's just very subjective. So I'll say, I have some homeowners that will insist, no, my house isn't haunted. But everyone else that's been in the house is like, we've seen things there.
So Kim, you actually teach a course on this. Stigmatized properties and what needs to be disclosed. And you have kind of that ghost angle to make it a fun Halloween
absolutely.
course for real estate agents out there. But how do you handle a situation like this? Because as Rachel mentioned, it can be so subjective.
Well, I mean, I do agree with what Rachel's saying. I mean, I've talked to many different people, and some people, they feel like or say and believe that they're in touch with spirits and things like that. And I believe them. I have no reason not to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I personally have never seen a ghost, but I'm not saying that there aren't any. I don't know. I wouldn't, maybe one day I will. There's still time. Yeah, I'm still waiting. Who knows? It could happen.
How do you handle something like that on the real estate side of things? Is that something that needs to be disclosed? If the owner is like, yes, there is definitely a spirit or a ghost here.
Well, first of all, it's different states.
Okay.
Different states.
Because you're in South Carolina.
I'm in South Carolina. So North Carolina, I will leave that to the really great North Carolina instructors that handle it there, because we do have some.
There are differences, right?
Well, yeah, and I've met some really good North Carolina instructors. So, yeah, but in South Carolina, no, we do not have to have any type of disclosures when it comes to death, murder, suicide, things like that. Our license law does not say that unless someone is being asked directly, and you know what, you must disclose it. However,
Okay.
Here, there is a however. I'm looking at Mike over here, and there could be a however. But South Carolina, we've got some areas also that have some really interesting haunted houses in them that people know about. I mean, we've got Georgetown. We've got Charleston for sure. Down in Beaufort area, there's some areas. I mean, we've just got some really good areas too that have a history of people believing that there's some spirits there and things like that.
But what about a house that is treated as a haunted house?
Well, that's where I was
visitors?
going.
Okay.
Yeah, this is literally where I was going with that. I mean, I always tell everybody if you are like with Rachel and you're going by the house, Rachel
gives tours.
Gives tours, right. So if you're in Charleston or, somewhere like that and your house is on a tour, I think there's a disclosure that certainly needs to be made. I mean, can you imagine you're buying this house, you move in, you're on your front porch in the South sipping your iced tea, and then all of a sudden Rachel comes by and she's like, let me tell you.
Really nice, though.
Let me tell you. Being very nice, but you're still going, oh my gosh, they're talking about my house. And
it has to be how the celebrities feel when the tour bus goes by and they start taking pictures. That has to be how they feel too.
So I mean, I think as a real estate agent and as a seller, you should recognize that. And you never know, that could be really something great for a buyer. They're like, yes, I want that house.
They're seeking out.
A lot of people love that. That's true. A lot of people.
Have you ever had someone on a tour say, are they selling? I'd love to have that haunted house.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
They'll ask, if there's a house for sale, they'll be like, how about that one? Is that one haunted? Because, and I'm the same way. I'm looking like, okay, what's for sale? Is there any way I can get a murder house? just for fun.
I'm the opposite.
I'll ask, now I know to ask Kim.
Not all ghosts are friendly, though, right?
And you know what? I always say in Davidson's such a small, charming, friendly town. Right. So I always tell everybody the ghosts in Davidson are just the same as the people are now. Like, I feel like all the spirits that we've encountered so far, have been just very friendly. They're just people who used to live and work here. And we haven't had any, knock on wood, we haven't had any problems with it.
Let's do it now. Knock on wood right now.
Yes. The table is wood. We can knock on
superstitious.
I can't imagine this would come up too much in like your daily real estate interactions, but have you ever encountered any sort of a ghost situation, Mike?
I've definitely had some feelings. I mean, feelings aren't facts, to be clear. Right. But sometimes you have these maybe intuition things, and typically happen when they're like dark and it's not well lit. And it's the opposite. We tell sellers to prepare their home for sale with lots of light and staging. And it's the opposite of that, as houses have been either run down or maybe they need a lot of work. There was one, it was actually in town Charlotte in a historic area that I remember a few years back. And we were showing with the buyer and we saw these bubbles on the wall and we couldn't figure out. It was just weird. They're everywhere. It's almost like if you took a paint splash, but it wasn't that. It was like wet, then it was dry and it was streaks, but it's all over the property. And we couldn't figure out why. It was just the strangest thing as a condo. And we called the agent and said, they've got these weird splotches on the wall. We can't figure out what's going on. And turns out that someone had been murdered in the bathtub and they brought in a shaman to cleanse the spirits. And what they were spraying on the water was the actual like the holy water or resin or whatever they used at that time to try to cleanse. It also smelled a little bit of sage, so maybe there's a giveaway looking back. But it was that was the answer. But that was not in North Carolina. Also in South Carolina, we don't have to disclose that. And so that was something we asked directly, and they gave us a direct answer. But they were you could see the hesitation on why somebody wouldn't want to. I do. They feel like it's going to be a stigmatized thing, and they're going to come in and lowball them or offer some ridiculous offer. In that case, it was enough for our buyer to say, I didn't feel good about the layout anyway, but that just tipped me over the edge, and it was not one of the ones that were seeking it out.
Well, right.
So, yeah.
So we're going to take a break from all the ghost talk. We have to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we are going to talk about the other ways a property can be stigmatized. We've hinted at this a little bit. We're going to talk about murders, crime, meth labs. When we come back, more Turnkey after this.
Sorry, let me give that back.
All right, welcome back to Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. As you can tell, we've been having quite a bit of fun during commercial break, talking about some of the The topics that we're about to talk about, one of them being a meth lab, a full-on Breaking Bad, right, Mike? I think that's what you said before you came back from commercial break. When it comes to other ways a property can be stigmatized, there are so many things that can happen. Meth lab being one of them. Does that need to be disclosed? I would think it would be some sort of a health hazard. And we've got Mike, who's on the North Carolina side. You're still licensed. You're licensed in South Carolina as well, or
Not any longer. No, I'm only in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Good to know. And then Kim is on the South Carolina side. So I'm glad that we have both of you here to kind of ping pong off of each other. And of course, Rachel, she's our ghost expert. But when it comes to meth labs, that sounds like it would be a serious concern. Does that need to be disclosed to a potential buyer?
So in North Carolina, we have a North Carolina Property Disclosure, an RPOD agreement. And what that is where a buyer has the right to ask for that. And typically that's provided to them prior to making an offer, which is the Seller Disclosure Agreement. And in that, it talks about environmental hazards. Meth lab would absolutely constitute an environmental hazard. So it does need to be disclosed. I think the bigger question is, how is it remediated? What are some more details of how it was handled? But it does stick with the property. So, there's environmental concerns ongoing that if you had a meth lab at one point, what did you do to take care of it since then? So,
which I would think if you have a meth lab, you're not the one who's taking care of fixing
you're
it at home. It's probably the landlord who's like, oh God, I can't believe this happened in my house. Kim, same thing on the South Carolina side?
Yeah, basically almost exactly the same thing. But Mike, I always thought it was kind of funny when you think about the seller's disclosure. It asks, has there ever been, any methamphetamines in here? Well, what if you were the seller that was actually doing the methamphetamines? Would you go, yes, absolutely?
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I'm disclosing that. So it just kind of depends on will you really disclose?
Admission of guilt right there on the paper, and then publicized on MLS.
Absolutely, let me just go ahead and lay it on out there.
Yeah.
But no, methamphetamines. I mean, we have the same disclosures that you do, and does it need to be disclosed? Let's say that you are the landlord. Absolutely. I mean, it's very toxic. It's there's a lot of serious problems that comes with the use of methamphetamines in a house, and so, once it's discovered, it does stay with that house. So, it's a pretty serious. And let me add this too, to piggyback on what you were saying. Don't forget that it also stigmatizes the properties beside you as well, because now it's like that's the house and you're the neighbor. So then people tend to.
Interesting. So then, do the neighbors have to disclose when they sell their house that there was a meth lab or a drug house next door?
No, it's not their house.
Okay.
I mean, but I'm just saying at that time, the whole neighborhood for a while is, now subject to what happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay, especially since sometimes the news, obviously we go to neighborhoods when things happen. I know that you guys said that a death doesn't necessarily have to be disclosed. It's just part of life, right?
Right.
A lot of times when properties go on the market is because someone passed away, especially if there was an estate sale like a couple weekends before it hit the market, you kind of know. But if there was something that was, so heartbreaking and egregious that happened at a house and it made the news and it was this whole thing, does that have to be disclosed?
Well, truthfully, probably, if you want to go ahead and keep the value up, I hate to say it, but I'd probably rent the house for a year before I put it on the market.
Piece of time.
To just let things settle a little bit. I mean, if we're talking about market, that kind of thing, and keeping the value up. But I mean, if you've got a house where it was sensationalized, the media was there, whatever may have happened, I mean, it's going to be hard to go ahead and not recognize that. So I mean, people are going to know what's going on. The neighbors are going to come over and they're going to, oh my gosh, can't believe you're buying this house. Did you see? Did you hear? Did you know? Yep. So time is the best healer for things like that, really and truly.
Which is interesting what you mentioned about the neighbors, because I feel like my husband, when we were looking at homes, kind of would always roll his eyes like, here she goes again. I would knock on the neighbors' doors, and if they're friendly, like, do I want to live next to this person? And what do they know about the house? What do they know about the reason that the house is on the market? Talk. I know people don't talk to their neighbors these days, but you got to talk to the neighbors, especially if you're going to be living next to them.
Oh yeah, they'll tell you everything.
That's a
They
great
will.
idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
was going to say sellers, they should disclose things that are material facts related to the property. However, to be very clear, murder and suicides are not on that list.
No.
But the neighbors, to your point, will speak up and say something, even if you ask, or you'll find out eventually. So it's almost like it's a delicate dance of how did it impact the property. We had a property that we sold that someone committed the act inside the house to themselves. And the cleanup crew, they didn't have the luxury of renting it out, unfortunately. And so we had to bring in all the resources to bring it up to today's standards. And it was difficult because people would ask, it seems like they just bought this house. Why are they selling? And it was,
Right.
a year after they purchased it, which makes it even an additional wrinkle.
And do you have
in
to
the
get
sheets.
permission from the sellers to disclose that? If it was, for instance, obviously I know that one of them, committed suicide, but if there was like a partner who is selling the house or a family member who's selling the house, do you have to then get permission from them to disclose what happened?
It's not in the client's best interest without their permission to share that because it could impact the value. If you're if you share that piece of information, because you're now sharing motivation of a seller, and it could be perceived as a distressed property
Okay.
or distressed situation. So it puts a fiduciary for your seller in a bad light, and we never would want that. So you'd have to really tread carefully. What we did in that case was people would ask, why are they selling? And generally the reason was true. It was a mom, unfortunately, and 2 kids, and they moved out to be closer to their family. It was a very stressful situation for them. Obviously, it was kind of unannounced and unprepared. And the person that ended up buying it, they knew about it, and they were not bothered by it. And they felt like they had a peaceful energy when they were there. That's what they claimed, and they moved forward with the sale. It did sit for a little bit of a time, however, so the property needed a little bit of work as well during that year time. I'd done a lot of work that needed to be finished and started, and halfway through didn't finish it. So it can be done. I don't think I'd lead with the disclosure aspect of someone unalive themselves in this house. But I think I'd probably start with, they're moving for other reasons. But if it came out or they're asked directly, then that's where you, forthcoming share. But it's generally not in your seller's best interest to provide that information.
It's such a delicate balance on both sides,
Really is.
trying to figure out how to word things without putting your client in a bind. On that note, I would love to hear from you two in particular about what questions people should ask when going through the home buying process. We do have to take a commercial break, but we're going to kind of wrap the show up with some of that when we come back. More Turnkey after this.
That was good.
Welcome back to Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. We have had our spooky Halloween-inspired episode that we've been doing today. I would love to wrap this up with questions that buyers should be asking their agents when they're looking at a home. Rachel, you come from kind of the ghost side of things.
Right.
Do you have any experiences that you have questions?
Yeah, I do have a family, and you would never think maybe when you're buying a home to ask about what was there before your home was built, because I have a friend in Davidson, and their home was built in the 1990s. So it's not a historic home. And when they first moved in, they had a 4-year-old daughter who drew a pretty disturbing picture of a man on fire screaming. And it was a very detailed picture for a 4-year-old. So, of course, they're asking, well, who is this? Or thinking, did she see something like this on TV? And the little girl said, that's the man who lives in the front yard.
Ooh, I just got goosebumps.
Oh, so, of course they're thinking, oh, it's just her imagination, whatever. 2 years later, literally, and this was pretty recently, a man rolls up and starts speaking to them when they're out in the front yard and was like, oh, you guys like living here, da-da-da. And then he discloses his dad used to live on that property, and his house burnt down in a fire. His dad passed away in the fire, and this was in the 1970s. And he said it was murder. He said the police kind of shoved it under the rug at the time, but he knows it was arson, it was murder, but his father died on that property. So
And then a new family.
of course they had no idea. And then of course they thought, oh my gosh, that picture that their daughter had drawn a couple years before, and they still had it tacked up on their fridge.
Okay, so you gotta In the spirit of Halloween, maybe carve out some extra time to do your own research.
Do some research.
A
do
real
some research.
real quick, Mike and Kim, what are some questions? One question that buyers should ask their agent.
Well, the first thing is reviewing the disclosure we talked about a little bit, is making sure you understand fully what that is. Keep in mind that's just the seller's perspective. So you're going to do your own due diligence when you're going through any property, and preferably before you go under contract. So I would say that's probably the number one thing. And then also we get asked all the time about certain things like crime in an area or, things. And there's some things as agents you have to understand we can't speak to. So if it's fair housing related or crime in an area, we can't be perceived as steering buyers in certain areas. So as agents, we can't answer a lot of the questions we'll get specific about demographics of communities, what have you. So buyer beware in North Carolina. You want to do your own due diligence as it relates to properties. And as agents, we can guide you through inspections and ultimately make sure the property is fit and habitable to move into.
Kim, anything to add?
Well, as a buyer, hire a realtor to begin with, and make sure that they are your realtor. So that way they can look out for your best interests. So they're your buyer's agent. That way, depending on exactly what you want to do with that property, that makes a big difference. So if you're buying a property and you think that maybe you're going to go ahead and use the garage and turn it into a hair salon, can you really do that? So I think that happens a lot of times. Get those homeowners association covenants and restrictions and all that early on.
It's a lot to read through, but you got to do it.
Yeah. Maybe you have 3 dogs that you just absolutely love, and then you find out you can only have 2. So whatever is really important to you, you need to let your buyer's agent really know that, so that buyer's agent can go to work for you to help you find the answers to that before you go ahead and make this huge investment and then realize that now you've got to make some major changes or you're not doing what you really wanted to. So I always go that way. Tell me as your buyer's agent, really, truly, what is it that you want out of this home? And that makes a big difference.
Well, Kim, Rachel, Mike, it has been really informative. Just a little bit of fun. Just a little bit. Thank you for joining us on Turnkey. We hope for everyone else out there that we've given you the potion for success and that you feel a little less scoop. It's going into the real estate market. Thank you so much for watching Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. We will see you next time.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.